So just a few weeks ago, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made big news when he flew 50 migrants from Florida to Martha's Vineyard without any consultation either of the Republican governor of Massachusetts or of the local officials or residents living in the small island of Martha's Vineyard. Now, he did this knowing that Martha's Vineyard only has a population of 17,000 people. His decision to send these migrants from a border state to a state or locale that is largely Democratic or more liberal isn't a new one. I mean, over the past few months, other governors, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, have also begun a policy of sending buses of migrants out of their own states and dropping them off at random places in largely Democratic cities. So places like Washington, D.C. or New York City. DeSantis' decision has garnered particular attention for a number of reasons. First, he used a plane rather than a bus. And secondly, there was just a complete lack of notice or consultation. And thirdly, the response from the people of Martha's Vineyard, which was so welcoming and positive, kind of caught people off guard. At this moment, several lawsuits have been filed against DeSantis, alleging that he may have broken the law in his decision to do this. As of this recording, there are at least several actions against him. First is a federal lawsuit coming out of Boston and alleging that the governor orchestrated a premeditated and fraudulent scheme to mislead these Venezuelan migrants. Another is from a state Democratic senator in Florida who's trying to stop the governor from using more state funds to continue this program. And then lastly, there's a probe from a Democratic sheriff in the state of Texas alleging an abuse of human rights. Now, in the days following DeSantis' decision, criticism against him has grown. At the same time, he has doubled down on his decision and pledged, quote, that this is just the beginning. Now, today, I am not going to discuss the merits or demerits of immigration policy, nor will I discuss how the United States should conduct or control the inflow of migrants at our borders. I have my views on this, but I'm a professor of negotiation, influence, and conflict resolution, not an immigration policy expert. In this video, though, I look at DeSantis' moves and use them as a way to identify some lessons for those who might want to improve their skills of leadership, negotiation, and influence. And if you stick around, I'm going to make a genuine offer to Governor DeSantis with respect to migration, the border crisis, and yes, negotiation and leadership. I'm Bob Bordone. I'm a senior fellow at Harvard Law School. I'm the founder and former director of Harvard Law School's Negotiation and Mediation Clinical Program, and I'm a founder and principal of the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. So let's start with the initial decision to send these migrants unannounced and with no consultation to a resort island with a small population. One insight that's really important for leaders and all negotiators is that before you do anything, you need to answer the question, what is my purpose in taking this action? In other words, what do I hope to achieve if I say or do X or Y? Often I'll be coaching someone and we'll be doing a role play and they'll say something like,
this offer is really good for you. You'd be a fool not to accept it.
And I'll immediately stop them and I'll say, okay, so what was your purpose in saying that? And they might say something like,
I was trying to get them to know that this is a really good offer.
Okay, but when you said that, how were you hoping they would react? What impact did you want to have on them in that moment and with those words? And a lot of times I'll see a furrowed brow. They'll say, well,
I want them to back down and say yes.
And when I hear that, I often say something like, so let me ask you, if I told you you'd be a fool not to accept anything, how would that make you feel? And my client almost always says something like,
I guess I feel kind of threatened and bossed around.
I think that's right, I say. And when you feel threatened or bossed around, are you more or less likely to do something? And they'll be like,
definitely less willing.
Okay, so I've made my point. So if your purpose is to get someone to do something, you need to really think about what is the choice you're giving them. And so let's go back to Ron DeSantis' decision to send these migrants to Martha's Vineyard. There are a number of possible purposes he might have. First, maybe he genuinely believes that he is actually helping improve these people's lives. He has said that that is one of the reasons why he's doing this. Now, to be honest, on its face, it is really hard to believe that that is one of DeSantis' true purposes here. But even if we give him the benefit of the doubt, there's still some important coaching here. So let me give you an example. You answer the door and you think, there's just no way I can help this person. But it occurs to you that somebody down the road, one of your neighbors, that they are better equipped to help the person. If you were going to send that needy person to your neighbor, wouldn't you almost certainly call that neighbor and say, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm sending someone your way. I hope you can prepare for them. I think most of us would be like, of course we would do that. And so the fact that DeSantis didn't bother to call someone from his own party, the governor of Massachusetts, and say, hey, I'm sending 50 migrants, or maybe the officials in Martha's Vineyard, makes me think like, were you really all that concerned about these migrants? Okay, so a second possible reason why he put these migrants on a plane to Martha's Vineyard is that he wanted it to be a wake-up call to people in parts of the country who profess to be pro-immigrant, but who don't really have to deal with the crisis in their own backyard the way people in border states do. The idea here is that by giving folks in Martha's Vineyard a, quote, lived experience of having to deal with migrants showing up unannounced, that this would somehow shift their opinions around the urgency of solving this problem. Now, to be honest, I'm actually pretty empathetic to the idea that some parts of the country, particularly states that are bordering Mexico, have really had to incur a disproportionate burden of the flow of undocumented persons coming into the United States. He nonetheless made a serious negotiation error here. You know, it's tempting in negotiation to think that if we use our stick, our power, our leverage to influence others, that under threat or fear, their views will shift. But typically, when we use threats or leverage or sticks and try to worsen the other side's alternative, it often backfires. It often makes them more angry, more defensive. It actually causes them to dig in more on their own view. And I think this is exactly what happened here. So to the degree that Ron DeSantis was trying to wake up or shift the opinions of people in more progressive states, this was a ginormous fail. The truth of the matter is, I do not know of a single Massachusetts person who disagreed with DeSantis before he delivered these 50 migrants, who now, upon having received the 50 migrants, have changed their view in favor of DeSantis' view. However, I do know a fair number of people who have become more angered and more entrenched in their views in opposition to him because of this move. Okay, so let's go to the third possible reason why Ron DeSantis chartered a plane, put 50 Venezuelan migrants on it, and sent them to Martha's Vineyard. And that's that he was neither concerned with helping the migrants nor with persuading those who did not share his view. Perhaps DeSantis' purpose was simply to incite and rile his own base, to get those who already agreed with him angry and mobilized. Now, in my view, that is probably exactly what he was trying to do. And why do I say that? Well, Ron DeSantis is no dummy. You know, he graduated from Harvard Law School in 2005. At the time I was teaching there, I don't know whether he took negotiation workshop, but what I do know is that he's a savvy and sophisticated person. So he doesn't think sending 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard is going to make a meaningful difference in improving people's lives. And he doesn't think that sending 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard is going to shift undecided citizens in his favor. But I do think he thought that getting this level of public attention on this issue would actually incite and anger people who already shared his view. And in fact, Ron DeSantis has actually lied about Biden's approach to immigration, right? He suggests that Biden is in favor of open borders. And that is just not true. In fact, almost no one on any side of the political fence is in favor of completely open borders. So I think the only reasonable interpretation here is that Ron DeSantis to send these migrants to Florida with the purpose of stirring up his rank and file, getting heaps of attention, praise, and lots of media coverage. Just about a week ago, U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg summed it up just about right when he was speaking at the Texas Tribune Festival.
But these are the kinds of stunts you see from people who don't have a solution. Like, where have these Governor DeSantis was in Congress. Where was he when they were debating immigration reform? What have any of these people done to be part of the solution? So, I get if you're after attention, that's what's going on. And the problem, of course, it's one thing if that was just people being obnoxious, but human beings are being impacted by that. You flee a communist regime in Venezuela, you come here, and then somebody tricks you. Somebody using Florida taxpayer money for some reason tricks you into going from Texas to Massachusetts. It's not just ineffectual. It is hurting people in order to get attention.
Okay, so this is where my last lesson lies, and it really revolves around what it means to be a leader. Truth of the matter is that almost no American doesn't think that immigration is a major and pressing problem in the United States. The challenge is that we have different solutions to this problem. So someone who would want to be a real leader doesn't incite and rile up their own partisans. Instead, they reach across the aisle. They try to engage those on the other side of the fence to come up with a shared solution, because we all agree we have a shared problem. So what could Ron DeSantis have done in this situation? Well, first, he could have actually called up President Biden. He could have asked for a meeting to genuinely hash out differences. And if he had done that, I'd be singing his praises. If he was intent on sending migrants to Massachusetts, he could have called up Massachusetts Governor Baker and said, hey, we have a real challenge here. We are overburdened here in Florida. Is there any way people in your state, people in northern states, people in more progressive states can help us out? Maybe we can establish some kind of program to bring migrants to these states and alleviate some of our burden. And if Ron DeSantis had done that, I'd be like, kudos to you. He did not do that. He took a unilateral action with no consultation, and then he grandstanded. So here are the takeaways. First, in negotiation and in leadership, you need to consider your purposes and ask whether your actions and your strategy will actually achieve your desired or expressed purposes. In this case, if the governor of Florida was trying to help migrants or persuade hearts and minds, he really failed. Secondly, in leadership, you need to really consider what it is you've been elected to do. There is a trust and responsibility that is attendant to leadership. Genuine leaders reach across divides, and they try to problem solve. Genuine leaders try to mobilize their own supporters to be constructive, not angry. And so this leads to my offer to Governor DeSantis. I don't know whether you took negotiation workshop when you were a student in Harvard Law School, but either way, if you have a genuine interest in learning how to persuade and influence others for consensus building and for problem solving across differences, I will offer you and your staff a free negotiation workshop. I do have a condition. The interest has to be sincere and come from a place of a genuine desire to learn and grow. Now, if you're interested in growing your own leadership and negotiation skills, I hope you'll watch this next video, which is called How Leaders Contribute to Conflict Resolution. I'd also be super grateful if you could like this video, ring the bell, and of course, subscribe to my channel. I'm Bob Bordone. Thanks for watching. Okay, you want to know how to be a better leader? Keep watching.